Okay. I feel like I'm always starting by fixing my hair, which is an important first place to start. Today is definitely casual Friday. I'm rocking the sweats, no makeup. My face is a little red from a face mask I just did. It's also a face mask Friday. Still recovering from my cold, but feeling a lot better. All right, jumping on here. I was gonna say that I was going to try and speak for under 5 minutes, but I can already tell it's not gonna happen. So whatever. Um, my goal is to post 3 times a week. I feel like it's a feasible goal. I'm excited to have that kind of structure to keep me motivated. Um, and so today, for today's topic, I want to share how long it actually took me to quit my job. Um, because I think that's something that we could and should talk about more. The thumbnail that I used for the video I found online. In fact, I have a question about that. If anyone wants to tell me, I'm just using thumbnails from online and I don't want to get in trouble for that later. I'm going to start using Canva to make my own graphics soon, but I just haven't gotten there yet. So um, just tell me if you think I'm doing something I'm going to get in trouble for. But so when I went to upload a thumbnail and went to Google Images, the first thing that popped up was like quitting on TikTok. And if you haven't been on TikTok, I do highly recommend it. It's a very interesting place to be. I know people have reservations about it, and I understand why, including the US government. um, and I also have like learned a lot there. There's some really interesting conversations there, and you can see things that you've never seen before, and you would never see except that it's on TikTok. I'll leave it at that. This is not my TikTok plug channel. I'll save that for later or episode. But it was kind of fun. I thought the graphic was catchy, and you can't see it probably in my thumbnail, but behind um, basically people are sharing on TikTok the moment that they're quitting, um, which I have mixed feelings about, but that kind of caught my eye, and I love the color orange anyway. But I did want to clarify in case anyone recognized that I didn't quit recently, and I didn't quit on social media. Um, but it was too good not to pass up using that image, which hopefully isn't copyrighted. So yeah, I want to just talk a little bit about how I quit and how long it took me, and curious to hear about others' experiences. In some ways, my quitting started. What year are we in? 2023, like about 20 years ago. And here's why I'll say that. I have a very good friend, Sylvia, who we actually met at our first job together in Los Angeles. And it was both of our first jobs, and we really connected as colleagues and then just became good friends. And that woman, let's see, I was at the job for 6 years and she was there for, I'm not even sure, 3, 4? You'll have to tell me. So, anyway, she quit before me. And not only did she quit, but she quit in a way that, especially for me at that time, I never would have done. And it really like impressed me in a positive way. She just knew that it was not the right fit for her, and she didn't do it in a big dramatic way. And obviously, TikTok was not a thing at that time. She did it in a professional way. I do think there was some tension there, maybe with some of like with the supervisor in terms of her feeling like unhappy there, but she didn't, leave in a way that was rude or unprofessional. But I remember she was ready to move on, and she did. And the interesting part for me was the fact that she didn't have another job lined up. And beyond that, she had kind of been planning and thinking about it. So she had saved up money, and she also had like a, very sustainable budget and lifestyle. And so she actually took, I want to say it was a year off. It might have been 6 months, but and she took that time to really do what I'm doing now, which is to kind of think about what she really wanted in her next role and manifest that for herself. And she did. She wanted to be in more of a director role, and because she's more of an alpha and has amazing ideas and works very hard to implement them. And she did. She was able to manifest this role for herself where she was a director of a community center, whereas we were working together at a community center before. And I was just so impressed because I've always kind of grown up with a scarcity mindset around money and always feel like I can I can never be in the red and I always have to be in the black. Always pay my credit card bill on time. Hate myself when somehow I mess up and I don't. It feels like a personal downfall, which is like so silly. Um, and definitely would have felt uncomfortable quitting without knowing where my next job was, and sort of like quitting, not even knowing what kind of job necessarily I wanted next. So when she did that, um, it really impressed me at the time. I knew her so well, and it was fun to like be able to, be supportive of her and watch the process closely. And that never left my mind. I think it really stuck out to me how bold of a move that was. And then I spent the next 20 years working my butt off and loving it in a lot of different um, places. And I transitioned shortly after that into my teaching career. Um, and so, but that little kernel of like what she had done and watching her be successful at it always stayed with me. And I was definitely, when I graduated from college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And the first job I actually got was, speaking of Nepo babies, my stepmom at the time had a position open at her job, which was this at this community center. And so I took the opportunity because it sounded really great and I loved it and I did a great job at it. And it was a good starting place. But that was me kind of just stepping into what showed up for me. Um, and then I had always thought about becoming a teacher. And I saw an advertisement for the New York City Teaching Fellows program. And I went for it. My body kind of reacted and I went for it. So teaching also kind of, I mean, I had it in my mind that I wanted to teach, but I always thought I would teach later. So I was still kind of like not sure what I was doing with my life and a little bit confused and not really, if I'm being honest, doing the work of exploring and thinking about what it is I might actually want to do. And part of that's because I love to work, I love to be busy, and the job that I had at the community center it wasn't exhausting, but it was full and it was community based and it was working with lots of interesting colleagues and working with families and developing my Spanish. um, but it was doing a lot of like what I have done best for a long time, which is kind of finding out what other people want and being able to deliver that and people please. And there is a skill there, and there is a beauty in that, and you can learn a lot, and you can um, grow. Just if you're not sure and you're just following something, you are learning something, and you're developing yourself as a person. But I didn't do a great job, in my personal opinion, of thinking about what it is that I wanted and what made my heart sing. Although working with children and families has definitely always made my heart sing, so it was easy to stay there. But I so So when I started teaching, and it was very hard, um, I mean, every day I had to tell myself, you can do this, you got this. I always say the learning curve was like a 90-degree angle. Um, and there are many reasons for that. But um, I was kind of evaluating each day, and I was good at being in the moment and just saying like, okay, I knew this was going to be hard, and I'm not a quitter, and I am enjoying it, but it's hard. And I just kind of, at the end of each, at first it would feel like every day I would question whether or not I wanted to be a teacher. And then as I got the hang of it, it would kind of be each month. I would sort of check in with myself. Is this where I want to be? And then as I got, better at it, it would be more of a yearly thing. Like, yes, this is what I want. And as I changed schools and found schools that were a better fit for me, and I loved it, and my schedule became more manageable, and I just developed. I developed more skills so that I didn't have to be constantly thinking all the time about everything you need to do as a teacher. That's part of why they say it takes you 6 years to become a teacher, because there's so many skills that you have to develop, and they're not all going to happen overnight. So as I got better, I think I really hit my stride, and I think it was maybe like, but that little voice was kind of still in the background asking me like, is this really what you want to do? And but it was more quiet, maybe in the middle of my 16 years of teaching. So anyway, I think, to answer the first part of my question, how long it took me to quit my job, in some ways it's taken me 20 years, because I think I had that question in the beginning, but I wasn't sure, and I knew teaching was something I wanted to try. And so I really dug in, and I do think it's a part of who I am. It's a part of why, unfortunately, oh, look who's calling. It's Sylvia. All right, I'll call her later. It's part of the reason why, sorry, I can't access that button to quiet it for random reason. Oh, wait, maybe we can do it here. No. I'm sorry. Okay. She might call back. Let me just text her. Hold on. It's not that I'm not tech savvy. All right, here's what happened. I have a case that doesn't really fit that iPad, and so I can't access the thing to turn off. All right, so 20 years, kind of in the back of my mind. Do I want to quit? But the real moment came. I got to a school. I ended up changing like every 3 years, working at schools, and I think it's because I love the challenge of a new school setting, figuring out the system, and then I think I would get like bored, kind of. But I also had like major life events happening every 3 years, and it just happened that I was kind of moving geographically. I don't know. It was an interesting path. But eventually I ended up at a school that I worked at for 6 years, which, according to my work history, was a long period of time, because I was working at each school for about 3 years at a time. And looking back, I realized that it's because they were giving me, I don't know why I'm not liking this live. Should I start over? Fudge. But I always like it when I watch it again. It's 14 minutes. I always think I can do this quickly. All right, let me finish, watch it. I can always delete it. I just feel like I go down these mental rabbit holes. Long story short, my the job that I worked at for 6 years, the second to last school that I worked at, I think I was motivated to stay there because I was taking on these leadership roles that I had never taken on before. And actually, I didn't take them on. The school forced me into them. Um, and I actively was like, I don't want this role. And I had, during the course of that school, I had three different heads of school or heads of my department, heads of the middle school. And the second person that I worked for, she definitely pushed me into leadership roles. And I would actively tell her, I don't want this role. That's not me. Which is funny, right? Like Sylvia wanted to be a director 20 years ago. And however many years later, 15 years, I was like telling someone, please do not give me a more active leadership role. But I'm very grateful she did because I discovered that I enjoyed it and I brought a lot of positive things to the leadership roles. And I think that's what kept me at the school even longer. But again, that question still lingered. And I just started to feel burnt out. And then COVID hit. And I already was like, I'm just not feeling fulfilled. And my motivation is starting to kind of go away for teaching. And so sorry, I just keep thinking about like, is this going to be interesting to anyone? So long story short, I just started to finally know that I had benefited so much from teaching as like an individual, and I had really enjoyed the role so much, and I got lots of feedback from students and families that they enjoyed how I taught Spanish and French, and that gave me a lot of like personal satisfaction and fulfillment. But yeah, the motivation to continue into the field, it was starting to go away, and I could feel it. So I would say before COVID hit, I already had a more clear formed idea in my mind that I wanted to explore other careers outside of teaching. And I think for me, what's important, and I feel like this is the point I wanted to get to 18 minutes ago, is that I started to vocalize it outside of myself. I started to say it to other people aloud, and that's when I think it became real. And then I actually had a meeting with Sylvia, who's probably waiting for me to call her back right now. We started having like meetings with each other where we would kind of meet and talk about our goals. And again, in that meeting, I set a goal for myself to quit. And I think just taking those steps, like telling another person that I wanted to quit, and then writing it down on a piece of paper that said my goal. And then under that, putting some action steps. And I was terrified because, like I said, I've always wanted a steady income and wanted to be financially responsible. I had loans to pay, I had things to pay off. And so for me, it was very scary. But so the first step of just telling another person to me was huge. And doing that was powerful because it started to make me feel more confident and help me to manage is not the word I want, but it helped me to overcome the fear that I knew that was in me. So telling other people, writing it down as a goal, and then I don't know if you would imagine what my first step was for quitting, but I came up with an idea that I was comfortable with, and it was to write a practice resignation letter. And I was very proud of myself for coming up with that idea because I realized it was something that allowed me to feel uh, the reality of taking that step without obviously like having to alert my school or anything like that yet. Even though I knew when I would make the decision, I would tell them and I would give them plenty of time. It's something as a teacher that's always been important to me to try and work with the school in a way that allows me to move on and them to move on and find a new person as well. So anyway, I will have to look back to see when exactly that was, but I want to say that was at least 2, if not 3 years before I actually quit. I think it was only like 2. So it took me, several months just to tell another person I was ready to quit and write the practice resignation letter. And plus 20 years of thinking about like, do I still want to be a teacher? I hope this is not discouraging. Anyway, I wrote, as soon as I wrote the sample resignation letter or the draft resignation letter, I knew my body finally had the answer. I don't know why I was so confused for so long, but it took me all the way up into that point, and my body was like, yep, that's what you want to do. And so the fear it went down a lot more upon writing that. And then I was ready. And I think I had another friend read the resignation letter, and I sent it not too much later after that. I think maybe a week later. So yeah, I guess what I wanted to come on here and say, and I'm definitely, my old boss used to say I like to process things out loud. What I came on here to say was, it takes time to quit for me. It took time to quit for me. In some ways, it took 20 years, and in other ways, it took like a couple of years. And that time was really helpful for me to take because another thing you don't always think about, at least I didn't, is, my identity was a teacher for educator, teacher for 16, and really like an educator for 20. And, you really start to see yourself in that role. And when you don't know what's next, it's exciting, but it's also a bit confusing. And so it was nice to have that time to kind of mentally start to shift from I am a teacher to I'm not sure what I want to be yet. And now to like, okay, I know I want a creative career. I want to be an entrepreneur. I know I want to be an artist. It took me 2 years to get from 0 to being like confident enough to say that. So yeah, I would just encourage anyone, if you're thinking about quitting, I actually have not watched the TikTok quitting videos, but you may or may not want to do it that way. But take the time that you need. Everyone's different. And I'm sure I hope there's people out there who would be the opposite of me and maybe would make a bolder decision the way Sylvia did 20 years ago. But, we all have to take our own path, and there's a reason for it. And I truly did, I'm so happy that teaching is a part of my identity because I think this is the point I was trying to make earlier. I feel super comfortable on these YouTube lives. And I think it's definitely due to teaching. I was listening to a podcast this morning where a creator was talking about her process of, using Instagram as a way to market her business, and how in the beginning going live was very scary for her, and she used to have to write her scripts, and how it took her a long time to get to the point of like feeling comfortable being authentic. And it kind of made me like happy in a fun way, because it reminded me of my journey as a teacher. Um, I used to, for my first classes, especially for my first few classes of the school year, I would write a script and I wouldn't read it when I was teaching, but just having written it, it would help me to kind of keep my thoughts clear about where I wanted to go, which is why I probably should have written before this session today. But I feel so comfortable showing up here. And I thank teaching for that, because when you get in front of a room full of middle schoolers, there is one very important rule. It doesn't matter what you're teaching. Well, it does for lots of reasons, but it doesn't matter what you're teaching. It doesn't matter how you're teaching it. There are lots of things that don't matter, but there's one very important thing that matters, and that's your confidence. Because if you are not authentic and confident, those sharks can smell your blood in the water. So yeah, I realized that I've been thinking about making a YouTube channel, and I should have started sooner because I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, you know, what thoughts do y'all have about quitting? Have you quit? Are you thinking about quitting? I also find, like, I think it must be interesting. I feel like each, what am I trying to say? Not career, but like, each career has a different way that you're supposed to quit. And some politics around that. There's some very interesting politics in education around quitting that I always think is fun. It's interesting to me that each kind of career has its own culture in that way. And I will add one more thing too. So I would say it took me 2 years to quit my job, but I think I'm going to have to say 3, because what I didn't tell you is I submitted my resignation letter. The school tried to get me to stay. I knew in my bones, like, thank you so much, but no, not going to do it. And then that June, the following June, because I gave them a lot of time. I think I resigned in like October, November, December or January, maybe. Anyway, I gave them plenty of time to replace me. And then that June, a school I had always been really interested in, I'm sure because it's very creative and kind of a progressive school in Brooklyn, they reached out to me and they wanted me to come interview. And I have learned with me, if I go to the interview, it's probably the job is probably going to go through, because I usually fall in love with the places that I choose to visit. So I actually took another job after I quit at the one school. I know they were probably annoyed with me, but I'm glad I did, because it allowed me to save more money, feed into my fear of not, being financially responsible and stable. But it also allowed me to see that even though I really enjoyed working at that school, I still was ready to move on. So it was just like another sign for me that taking this plunge is the right way to go. All right. Just wanted to share how long it took me to quit my job. 20 years, 3 years. Yeah, and encourage you to, if kind of like starting the YouTube channel. If it's something you've been thinking about more than one time, maybe sit down, journal about it, talk to another person about it. Because if you're like me, you might need to kind of work out your thoughts by speaking about it aloud, even if it comes out imperfectly. And I'm so happy that I did. I of course, wonder, what am I doing with myself this year? Is this wild? In a year from now, am I going to be desperately knocking on schools' doors to hire me again so I can have some income? Maybe. But you know what? That's okay. I'm very okay with that, because this is something I want to explore, and I will regret it if I don't explore it. And so far, all signs in the universe have been positive, showing me that I'm on the right path. So I can't believe I've done this again. Actually, I can't believe that. I can't believe it. But I've now made my third longest video. I can't tell if I have a lot to say or I just say things in too detailed of a way, but I'm just very proud of myself. I am very much giving myself the space and time to just follow the way that I'm going right now. So I will get off and I will watch this video, and if I really hate it, I'll delete it. But so far, I've kind of enjoyed each video, and even if it's just for me. But every time I post a video, I gain a few more subscribers. This is not good. You are creating a monster or encouraging a monster. Yeah, it's so wild. I started with 4 subscribers 2 days ago, and I'm up to 14. Woo! Not exactly, going viral, but hopefully resonating with someone out there. And I'm just really enjoying it. So I'm going to continue doing it. 31 minutes and 29 seconds. All right. Does that mean my next video is going to be over an hour? Who knows? Happy Friday. Thank you for being here. And yeah, looking forward to seeing y'all soon. 3 videos per week. This is not going to be hard for me, apparently. Even though I woke up again last night in a panic. Like, what have I done? What am I posting? How am I going to do 3 videos a week on what content? Clearly, it's not going to be a problem for me. All right. Ciao. See you soon.